Hello, I want to show you today the Mixbus integration for the Novation Launchcontrol XL controller. I coded this over the last few months with the help from the Ardour devs and especially with the help of Terence Clastres. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's a French guy who did the original base implementation for the controller in Ardour, upon which I built my integration for Mixbus. Let's start off with Mixbus Standard Edition. This is still a development version. Hopefully it will come out together with version 5.2. So at the start, we are in what I call the mixer mode. So we have 8 channels and we can control the faders for the channels. And above here we have the send controls, so I can control the sends, number 1, number 2. If I press send select, I can control 3 and 4, and 5 and 6, and go back and control 3 and 4 again, and go up again and control 1 and 2. So I have the first 6 sends I have under control in mixer mode. Later in device mode you can control all of them. This was a decision to do it that way because it's easier. You see here with the colors I can only indicate 3 modes for the sends, so that makes the 6 possible sends that are available. Then of course you have the pen, and you can adjust the pen left and right, and the controller has, you can feel when it's in the middle, it ducks a little bit, so that's very convenient. And yeah, you have the gain. And down here we have track focus, so you can select the tracks as if you would do with the mouse. And down here we have the control buttons. The function of those is determined by the 3 buttons here, so we can choose mute, which is default, and then we can switch to solo and to record arm, and you see down here the color indicates the function. So if we unmute, we will just mute the channel. You see here, I have to be careful to not always touch the camera. And yeah, so, and you can switch to solo, and you can just solo and back, mute, unmute everything. And as you can see, the color indicates the status for the tracks. So, as we have usually more than 8 tracks on projects, you can of course do a bank select. So now we are operating on tracks tracks 9 to 16. If I focus them, you will see that the Mixbus window also switches to the first one in focus. And you have the same controls here, just now on track 9 and track 10 and so forth. So this is the normal mixer mode. Go back to track 1. When you hold the device button, you get extra functionality. For example, the send A knob will now control the trim. You see I have the device button hold down all the time. The send B knob will control the high pass filter, and the pen device will control the compressor threshold. There's also extra functionality for the track focus and control buttons. The track focus now determines the solo isolate state for the track, and you can see the color indicates this. When I release the device button, it goes back to normal function. You see those are on solo isolate. I can put them back, and the green ones here indicate that these are assigned to the master, so I can just unassign them from master or assign them to master as I wish. Yeah, that is the mix mode functionality. I also implemented a device mode. This will give you control on the first selected strippable, as it is called in Ardour and Mixbus. So if I have a track selected, the whole controller will now control this one strip. So up here we have the EQ controls. So you have the gain for all three bands, and you have the frequency for all three bands, and this is the high pass filter, and this is again the trim, and here you have the stereo pen, and this is a compressor section here, so you can adjust the makeup gain, you can adjust the parameter, and you can adjust the type of compressor that's in use. The third row is for the Mixbus Sense, so now here you can control all 8 of them, just one row. And this is the fader, and this is the compressor threshold. So, and the first row of buttons now is assigned to the Mixbus Sense, so you can enable and disable them, as you can see. So if I have them all disabled and I turn one of the knobs, it turns back on, as you can see with the color. I can disable it, I turn it, it turns on again. Very cool. The last row is the mute solo. This is EQ on and off, so you can see I can turn EQ off and the color goes off, changes the color. And also, if you look up here, I don't know if you can see it in the video, also the knobs colors change when I turn on and off the EQ section. So I always have also a light indication of what status each knob or button is in. So I have it turned off now, so now if I move a gain fader, it turns on again and the light also comes up again. So you always know what state each knob is in. 4 is empty. This is because for 32C there's functionality here, and I tried to, where it's possible, to have the same functions on all the knobs, independent of the Mixbus version you're using. 5 is the master assign. 6 is empty again. There's functionality on this in the 32C mode that I'm going to show later. And here is compressor enable disable, and this one is record in. Yeah, so this is the device mode on a normal track. So if we change now and select a Mixbus, you see that the knobs changed accordingly. So now we only have 3 EQs for just the gain, because we have fixed frequencies on the Mixbuses. We have here again the pen control. Now we also have the pen width, the mono to stereo width for the Mixbus. And here we have the tape drive knob. So everything on the Mixbus is controllable. So here again we have the trim, the compressor section, and everything else is the same where it's appropriate. So we don't have sends, so these are off, also down here, but the rest is the same when the functionality is available on the Mixbus. The same is true for when we change to the master. So you see we don't have a solo here anymore, so it's turned off, but we have a mute, and we have the EQ, and we can turn the EQ on and off. So that's all pretty nice. Here's the trim, here's the compressor section again, and the master. Okay, so this is device mode. We can go back again to mix mode, show something nice here. When you hold the factory button up here, you can change, select a track filter. So this determines which tracks the controller actually operates on in mixer mode. For example, now we are on default. That is basically everything. So if I do a bank switch here and another one, I will now control Mixbus 4, Mixbus 5, Mixbus 6. If I go back here, I have where am I? I have Mixbus 2, Mixbus 1, and so on. Sorry, I have a little cold, so I have to cough from time to time. 2 will be just audio tracks, and 3 will be just aux buses, which I don't have any one right now, so I will just add one. So you see I added one, and it immediately came up here. So now I'm controlling this bus. 4 is just the mix buses. So 3 was the aux buses, and this is just the mix buses. So you can pretty easily switch from everything, and then when you want to work on the mix buses, you just switch to 4, and you immediately have the 8 mix buses here, which is pretty convenient, I think. Then we have 5. Which is VCAs, which I don't have one. Now I have one, and you see it immediately pops up, and here's a VCA over here, and you see you can also focus it, everything. So yeah, device mode for VCA, I didn't show that yet, so I switched to device mode. Well, there's not much on a VCA, so it remains pretty empty. You can solo and mute, and that's about everything. For a bus, that is basically the same as a normal track. Right, so to filter 6. Filter 6 is only the selected tracks, so you can actually build your own setup here. So you can select the tracks you want, and for example the corresponding mix bus. So now you have the marked tracks on these, and the mix bus here. Pretty cool. You can create your own setup. For example, if you're working on a brass section or something, and it's assigned to a certain mix bus, or you want to work on two mix buses and the corresponding tracks for one of them, you can just build your own assignments by selecting the appropriate tracks. Yeah, so 7 is nothing, because that is somehow sending strange MIDI signals from the controller, so I didn't use this one. And 8 is the master. And if you have a monitor section, actually the first one will be the monitor output and the second one will be the master. So, yeah, that's it. Hopefully this will come in Mixbus 5.2. I've used it quite intensively, works okay for me. I hope it's good for someone else too. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and yeah, share and like and comment. Thank you very much.